everybody, welcome back to my channel, and I have Rashelle joining me. And just a little background on Rashelle. We know each other through my husband, and she is from Portland, so we will be hearing another point of view from Portland, but mainly about the education system and as mixed people on how we feel about the one drop rule. So hi, Rashelle.
Hi. What's up?
Nothing. So where do you want to start? Which topic? Education or the one drop rule? Because it's all kind of intertwined.
It is kind of intertwined. Well, we were just talking about education and the impact of unexamined racism in our teachers and in our schools. So we could just pick that back up.
Right, and since we both work in our own rights for the education system, let's just be clear, we're not blaming anyone.
We're blaming anyone.
Pointing out some things that we notice as people, because I know that it's a very, like I say before on my last videos, it's not a political channel. We're just voicing some things we notice as people who are in the middle and what we notice as just individuals who live these lives. So I know that we have some teacher friends and educators who might be sensitive to this. Just know this is not a personal attack. This is just starting a conversation and maybe finding some solutions on how we can go about fixing these little things.
There are a lot of things that you don't notice if you don't have the lived experience. So when we point these things out, it is important for white teachers to just be able to listen and reflect I think we all have an instinct to kind of personalize and say, well, I'm not like that, or that's not the experience that I've had. But if you hear other people telling you that it is an experience that they've had, that makes it true.
I agree. And also what I've noticed, at least in my community, is that it's not always about you. And sometimes even just letting or encouraging parents that seem like they want to come in your classroom and be a part of it, but kind of are held back, kind of as a teacher, inviting them maybe separately one more time, saying, hey, I haven't seen you in my class. Would you like to come? We're doing a project on something. And I feel that sometimes we get so caught up in our own feelings that we miss the little subtle cues that could help build a bridge between educators and parents of minorities.
Yeah, I think that one thing that whiteness as a construct does is it sets this baseline, right? So if you're white and this is your experience, this is just the experience. And so without being intentional or being intentionally called to think about the different experiences and, the truth that is happening that is different from your own truth, that's an important part of being an effective educator, because if you're not able to do that, then you're not truly able to see all of the children in your classroom for who they are in their own homes, in their communities, in their minds, in their hearts. And if you can't see who they really are, then how can you teach them effectively?
So on that, I was a part of a community Zoom, and there was a teacher who asked, well, how as a teacher that not necessarily is going to notice these things right away, how can they be more aware? Do you have any suggestions as an educator of somebody who might not pick up on these cues? How can they connect with their minority students better?
I think it's important for teachers, at the beginning of a school year, of that beginning of a relationship with a child and their family, to give children and their families the opportunity to tell you who they are. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you as a teacher can do that. But when you allow everyone in your community to tell you about them and who they are and what's important to them and what their goals are for learning and what they need to feel safe enough to learn in a classroom community. When you do that, you're kind of requiring yourself to suspend all of your prejudices and your biases. Because we have those fill in the gaps of all of the things in our minds about someone that is unknown, right? But when we actually do know, it's more difficult to let those stereotypes take over, because we know who they are. We know the specifics about their life. We're not making assumptions about who lives in their household, or their culture, or what languages they speak, or any of those things. So, allow yourself to connect with your kids and their families on a real human level, and find out some of those really fundamental things about them as you are developing that relationship.
Nice, that's well said. So on another note like that, what do you suggest as parents of minority children? How can parents connect with that fear of being othered? I've realized in my community, when I ran for one of the boards, that a lot of minorities who voted me into this board or this group were afraid of being othered if they came forth with their stories of being uncomfortable. So do you have any suggestions for parents, minority parents, on how could they kind of get over their own fears and try to connect better with maybe a teacher for their children? Do you have any?
And I feel like that one is so much harder, because for a lot of us, that requires going into a really vulnerable space. I mean, for a lot of us who were children of color in the schools, that relationship with teachers and principals and the power structure of a school, there's not necessarily a lot of happy memories there, or the experience of being empowered and heard and validated. So to do that really feels risky. And then on the other hand, we're parents, and I mean, I haven't met one yet that will not fight for their kid.
Right.
So it is like that balance of the fear and trauma that you have at the hands of the system, and the fear of trauma that you have for your own child. What I've found as helpful is having relationships with other parents, like my school-age kid goes to a school that was founded by Black women, with the purpose of eliminating the achievement gap for Black children and other children of color. So I don't have that particular trauma when I go to the administration of my son's school, but he has a disability. And so to make the counter argument or parallel argument, when I need to advocate for him in that space, it's been really helpful to have relationships with the families of other children with disabilities in the school, so that we can combine resources and knowledge, and just generally support each other and talk about what's going on with SPED and what cuts the district is making this week.
I'm into that field. SPED. That's my field. I'm a special needs assistant. So yeah. I love, those are my people. Yeah. My brother is SPED, and my heart goes out to you. Some of those fights are tough.
And right now, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I mean, right now, fighting for, come up here, fighting for racial justice in the streets, and then also fighting for disability rights and supporting our kids who have special needs. One of the byproducts of this whole pandemic and everything is, okay, go get your toothbrush. You gotta go get it. Is the cuts that are happening in school districts, and those are impacting SPED, and those are our kids who can't withstand any more inequity and trauma. But sorry, I totally digressed.
Oh no, I feel you. Trust me. That's another fight I fight for, because they're my people. I spend all day with them, and they make me so happy because they keep you in the moment, and they remind you that, dude, all your little problems are nothing. Like, if I can do what I do with what I got, then hush your face. And I will proudly take that and hush my face. So I have not really looked into the Portland public school system, because clearly that's where all my scars come from. But something that really bothers me on a macro level for California is the new California dashboard. And it can be looked up on any link. And I wanted to know your opinion. So when we first moved from Oregon to California, part of how we chose where we wanted to live was off of the gradings of the schools. So I believe it came out, I think we're on our second year for this dashboard business. So what really bothers me about it is that the grading system has now changed into if you have to have 35 kids in the category of that minority in order to be counted in the numbers that people see when they are looking up your school. Now, here's the problem with that. When you live in a suburban neighborhood and community, it usually is that minority numbers are very low, especially when it comes to African Americans. Mm-hmm. With that said, I have not checked into the Portland system, but how, on a macro level, how do you think we could, have that changed? Or how do we bring attention that numbers matter? Because I keep getting the opposition that, yes, that might be in the numbers, but we still pay attention to each student as an individual. But that does not help when you are looking to move into a community, because I personally feel that people look at these minority numbers also to see where they want to move. And so in my opinion, we are misrepresenting a town by hiding African Americans in the numbers. Like, they can be the best track stars, the best football players, but their graduation won't be shown because there's less than 35 of them.
I mean, we don't have that system in Oregon. And so it is hard for me to even understand why that one makes sense. I mean, in this time when we're talking about how Black people in our culture are dehumanized and not seen as people, it's literally refusing to count Black people or other people of color and consider them as part of the community until they have reached like some magical threshold.
35. Is it 35? 35 people.
It reminds me of, back in the day when Black folks were seen as 2/3 of a person, right? Like,
let's go into 2/3 of a person. You are a person of a multicultural family, correct?
Yes, I am.
I grew up with a white mother, but I understand your mother's Black and your father's white, correct?
Correct.
So we are opposite. So my mom's white and German, so it's a whole different weird story. And then my dad's African American. So as a mixed person who's always been in the middle, how are you identifying? And how are you feeling about this whole situation? Because just like me, you really can't be mad at either side. You love both your parents, right?
Right. So for me, hang on 1 second. I'm on a Zoom video.
I can cut this out.
Removing the toddler real quick so I can talk about it. So sorry about that.
No worries. I'll cut it out later.
Okay, good. Okay. So for me, my earliest memories of identity were hearing my mom say that we were Black, and this came up and like was processed by me, in all throughout my childhood and in different ways. Like the most basic for me then and now is this space of like, well, my mom is Black and my brother is Black objectively. And so am I like somehow the one who is not, because I'm not necessarily perceived by others as Black. So it's this whole weird thing. Like, I think for me, because I don't look Black by most people's definition, I mean, I don't know if it's extra questioning from other people of, well, why do you identify as Black? You don't look Black. But, my family is Black. my mom is Black. I come out of this long tradition of Black women in my family. Some who, I mean, both of my mom's grandmothers were as light as me. So it's not, an anomaly in my family to have Black people of all different shades. I think, most commonly, like what you hear is that for a lot of mixed kids, the world sees you as Black. And they don't make that distinction of, oh, well, you're mixed. And so most people fall on the Black side as far as how they identify. So that wasn't really the case with me, but to me that was irrelevant. That being said, I identify as Black, and I also know that I experience a lot of privilege because of how I look. And so I try very hard not to take up too much space. And in conversations where there are darker people present, like letting them speak and have the floor to speak to that experience, because there's a lot of shit that I don't have to deal with, and I recognize that. And, I shouldn't be the final word in all things because I don't live every single part of that experience.
I agree. As somebody who's in the middle, I grew up with the white side. I identified for a very long time until America told me I was Black. I identified with the German half because I didn't know the Black half.
Mm-hmm.
So, but as now a parent, and this goes to the one drop rule.
Right.
So I'm realizing the more I am, besides the dashboard, but now that I am more involved in schools and I understand the system of the school better, I feel the more necessary to put on the application that my children are Black.
Mm-hmm.
Because although I have the privilege of saying we're a multicultural family, which we are on paper, in real life, I'm an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
But I've realized that it's messing up the numbers, and this is why we have such low Black numbers, because people are now taking on the new category of we're multicultural family, which is true. Even full Black people,
right?
We
Absolutely.
are all multicultural for sure.
Right.
But that law is still a law if we acknowledge it or not. And it's while we are doing all these things, in my head I'm also going, why are we not challenging that to be changed? And in other spaces, like you said, it's how you view yourself and how the world views you.
Right.
So on paper, I can put I'm Black all day long. That does not mean necessarily that the world views me that way. Or I can put down that I am mixed all day long. That doesn't mean when I walk into a classroom, that is how I'm viewed.
Right.
So what is your opinion on mixed people like us or multicultural families, and putting on their multicultural versus their Black and going with that rule?
Yeah, so I mean, one of those first understandings that I had of race and how it plays into like life outside of our home is hearing my mom talk about those forms and those boxes and asking her why she was marking Black instead of both boxes, and Black and white. And it was a whole thing about, representation and funding and being present in the numbers and making sure that my brother and I were represented in the numbers reflecting Blackness. And that by like going into this multiracial space, like had consequences for the Black community, really. Aside from, and then, also going into just like the historical space of what Blackness has meant in this country and in our family. And, the sense of identity that, as a result was built in me. At the same time, when it comes to my kids, I mean, Luna, who was just right here, she is, her dad and I are both mixed with Black and white. So is she. But my son, who is older, his dad was part Mexican, and obviously I'm Black and white. And he, he's got olive skin and dark brown eyes and straight brown hair, and and he can pass for white. He also probably looks, kind of Latino. Like you could see that, but he doesn't look like a Black kid, that he lives in this Black family, and, you know, his cultural identity is Black, but that's not how he experiences the world. So, like, that's where, you know, we're like getting into territory that was different in the past. I mean, either, you know, back in the day, you passed or you didn't. Right. And it was one or the other. And we're not in that space anymore. And while it's really important to me to claim and own my Blackness, I don't know if that will be important to him, not because he doesn't value it, because he does and he's been raised to, but because he won't experience the world as a Black man. And, you know, he'll have questions to, you know, grapple with within himself. Like, is it fair for me to claim this identity that I don't have the lived experience of? And if I don't, then, you know, do I identify as multiracial or do I identify as white? I don't know. I mean, he totally could, and that would be up to him. I don't feel like I could tell him what to do. Right now, he says he feels Black in his heart and, you know, considers himself multiracial.
I've never asked my children. I know that my older one will identify. I've noticed that my older one is identifying more with that side.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger one, I mean, he'll never have that experience.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
My younger one will never, but my fear is the other side of it. How are you gonna feel? You have to defend your family because you pass, and you pass to the extent where without seeing the rest of your family, you're going to get the worst of what people say.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point where, and I've said this before, we are our parents. Not that we are like our parents, but we are now in the space of being the parents.
Yeah.
And what worked for it's crazy. They make us learn stuff, and they make us all gushy and worry a lot. Like, right? I didn't sign up to be a worry word. Okay. No. When I said I couldn't wait to be a grown up, I was like, I'm gonna live it up. Right. I'm gonna stay up till midnight. I'm gonna live my life.
But and now here we are.
Tired in the morning. Don't talk to me before my coffee. Yes, I love you. Here's your breakfast. I wouldn't give it up for nothing.
Nope, nothing.
But with that said, it's like I feel like it's our turn to redefine what it means to be an American. To redefine, and how do we lift our people up in the sense of what they deserve? Because, you know, I come from a very multicultural family. I have an older sister who is definitely Black. I mean, we all are. But her journey compared to mine, and hopefully she will come on my channel one of these days. But our journeys are different. And how do I, you know, protect my nieces and nephews and make them feel the love that I have for them? And it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to navigate and figure out how can we do this and I feel like it's everyday experiences.
Yeah. I think, man, I mean, it's a crazy time. Like, by the time our kids are adults, you know, they won't be minorities anymore. You know, most of the country will be brown for the first time. And, you know, our kids' generation, more than ever, you know, have people of different races in their families. And they are children right now in this crazy, incredible, historic moment where white people and Black people and brown people are all standing up together against racist police and, you know, the injustice that has been going on forever. So, you know, I don't know, maybe the questions that they'll be grappling with when they're the parents are going to be different. I hope so. I think they have to be.
Yeah, because I want to be sitting in that rocker in Boca. And
I'm going to be done fighting.
You know, it's funny that you say that we're going to be done fighting, because I remember one of my college experiences meeting David Dillard from the Black Panther Party. And I remember asking, well, what worked? Like, what do you want us to do? Like, I don't understand. And I remember him having this very tired look on his face and going, this is your generation. Well, then give me some advice, damn it. I get it, it's my generation, but what do you want me to do?
Yes.
So it's funny that you should say that. By then I'm done fighting. And it took me really talking to my dad and my aunts and everybody to be like, I get it. You don't understand us from the get-go. So how are you going to be able to tell me what to do if you don't even understand, like, how we grew up?
Right. It kind of reminds me of something that Dave Chappelle said in the special that he just did. I think it came out yesterday. I saw it yesterday. Anyway, but he was talking about, he was like, the kids are doing a great job. They got this. Like, they don't need to hear anything from me as far as like what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing and all of that. Like, this is their movement. This is their time. Like, I support it. I'm here. But like, you know, I'm old now, and, you know, the kids are leading this, and it's good. And it is good. And, you know, it's not that I think that by the time our kids are adults, you know, the world will be like this magically just and perfect place. There will be different battles that they have to fight. But God, at the very least, I hope, you know, that they're not out in the streets saying another Black man's name because they're still being killed by the police. And I hope that, you know, they don't have to fight for basic resources in schools. And I hope that they're all seen and counted and valued in their schools, and that all of their histories are being taught.
That's something. So, teaching history.
Oh, man.
I have yet to hear, besides when it's Martin Luther King Day, that we're really learning anything about actual American history. Let's call it what it is. It's American history.
It's American history.
Every German knows their history, and we have laws and rules and learned our lessons, right? But then here, it's like, it happened, it's done with, we're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you are in a more of a suburban setting, it's even worse. It's even less taught, and it's even less acknowledged, and it's more because there's less people in your face reminding you of the history.
Right.
So I don't know, but I think going forward, I feel like that maybe helping the playing field might be having a new part of getting your teacher's certificates and your master's in education, that you have to take a Black Studies class. I've said this in the last video. I learned what it meant to be Black at PSU in a Black Studies class. I felt like I was the whitest person in the whole room, and there were literally white people in there. And just for the record, folks, I went through the David Douglas School District. Just saying.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
I admin a parenting group in Portland on Facebook, and for the last couple of weeks, I've just been asking them questions like, when was the first time, or did you ever have a Black teacher?
One.
What did you learn in school about?
I had one junior year, and he had cataracts, so he was always smelling like weed.
Oh, that's funny.
But that was more in the city. That wasn't a suburban teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah. I can't tell you one Black teacher that I have had from elementary school to high school in the suburban district. I can't.
I mean, I was in Portland, and I had one in 6th grade, and in elementary school, the music teacher was Black. So
two.
Maybe, yeah, 2. Technically, but we just saw her for like an hour a week every week. Mrs. Washington. She's lovely. But yeah,
remember her name.
I do. I mean, it made a big impact, you know?
Representation is important.
Mm-hmm. And then the funny thing is she left, and the white teacher who came in to take her place taught us all these songs about the Confederacy. Like, we learned the way down south in the land of cotton. And I was like, I think I was in 4th grade, and I was like, really? This doesn't feel right. And then I went home and I told my mom, and her head just like exploded. Yeah. PPS, 1990s.
The 90s, they were great. Look at us, we turned out great.
Yeah, we did turn out great, in spite of it.
I love that saying. I'll toughen up. We're fine. Everybody turned out fine. And we did, to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely
there's also a lot of damage done now, you know, and stuff that, like, I'm still, you know, processing and unpacking years later. And so, like, to your question earlier, you know, when there's this expectation of families of color, like, you know, feeling comfortable going into the school and advocating for their children of color, there's a lot of trauma there. It's not as easy as it sounds, and if you haven't had that experience, then you're not even aware of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's not easy. It wasn't easy.
No.
And it's still not easy.
Still not.
But it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I feel like facing those traumas also help heal those traumas. Because you don't have to let your child live what you live.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
As a parent, I want everybody to realize you have more power than you think. And in my last video, I mentioned how it's the small things. It's the little acts. It's not necessarily always has to be like this dramatic entrance or exit. But it's the little things. It's the, you know, let me pull you to the side and just let you know that my child is a little sensitive to this topic. We are a little sensitive to this, and you know, and I've done it, and I've gotten great reception, because I feel personally that, especially nowadays more so than back when we were kids, teachers don't mean kids harm. Not every teacher wants to be that stick in the mud or old school. They really do want to connect more with their students. And I feel that even though the traumas are deeper for others, I feel like sometimes if we just find that courage and are like, hey, I know you don't understand it, but my child is a little sensitive to that. Please keep that in mind. And hopefully that helps a little. I mean, it helped me in ways, and then in other ways it didn't help, but it's always worth trying.
Yeah, and it helps the teachers too, because, I mean, you know, if we're assuming the best of people, you know, you're right, they don't want to be this horrible teacher that lives on in your child's memory, or they don't want to be the person who made this really traumatic experience in school happen. So by taking that step and communicating, even though it's scary, you know, we can do our part in trying to prevent that. Now, if you have a teacher who's just like a racist jerk and they don't care, that's another story. But I mean, I think what happens when we talk about racism too much is that, well, and I think what a lot of white people think is that racism is about hatred. And so racist teachers like hate that black child, and racist cops hate that black man, and I can't be racist because I don't hate anybody. But that's not what it's about at all. It's really when, you know, prejudice meets power that you have racism. And so, you know, you may not even be aware of a bias that you hold or are acting on, but because you're a teacher or a doctor or a police officer or a judge, you have power. And so what, you know, starts as a prejudice or a bias, kind of like your power gives it the snowball effect, right? Because that referral you write turns into 2 and 3, and a kid who misses a whole bunch of school and, you know, ends up not graduating, right? that those tickets that you get that someone can't pay, that, you know, turns into a warrant, that turns into jail visits, for a Black person who is not a criminal, but because of your biases that you hold as a police officer that you're able to act on, have these impacts far past like that piece of paper that's a ticket you're writing. You know what I mean?
I understand. And that brings me to another point of school security.
Yeah.
School security is a big one. I mean, I remember growing up that school security would be like the only Black man. I'm laughing out of sheer disbelief that that is the reality that I faced. But once again, in an inner city school.
Yeah.
I don't remember having security like that in the outskirts. It was when I, you know, was in a more of a city school environment, having that security guard and them facing their own biases from the outside world, which made it harder for them to be able to be an ally for those students, in my opinion, and putting them in a hard position where they're like, I don't want to have to do this to you. I get what you're doing and why you're doing it, but my job, and I got to feed my family, and I have no support in this faculty either. Yeah. So we're just going to have to do this song and dance. And it's heartbreaking to think of those little events where you want those people, you wanted to be that person to help. And you are put between a what is it called? A rock and a hard place.
Rock and a hard place, yeah. Yeah. And that is one of those ways that, like, it's like, I want to say almost like that, like, oppression, like, colludes, you know, like it can turn ourselves, it can turn us against one another, you know, because we are all like being put in this role that you have to, you know, you have to play the part if your financial security depends on it, right? You have to do things that aren't what you would want to do, or, you know, do things that are outside, you know, what you feel to be right. But if you're trying to exist within a system, then you have to play the game of the system. And I mean, it's almost like the overseer on the plantation, or not the overseer, but, you know, the they would pick, to like keep everyone else in line.
Jim Crow did well. Give the right person power.
Right.
And watch what happens. So as an educator yourself, what are some things that you think from your experiences are some little things that just in general within the system should have a second look at or be looked at, and or have helped you connect better with your coworkers and students and things like that? Like in your own experience, give us some do's and don'ts. Rashelle's do's and don'ts. Don't touch her hair.
Don't touch their hair. And don't give them nicknames. Say their proper name. Ask them how to pronounce it and learn how to say it. Like, calling someone outside of their name is so disrespectful. And if their name is from a culture that is not yours and it doesn't make sense to you, that is a you problem, not a them problem. Learn how to say and spell their name, and learn the names of their family members so that you can greet their family by their name. That's one. We need more Black teachers and teachers of color generally, but particularly Black teachers. Our Black kids need Black teachers. White kids need Black teachers. Everybody needs Black teachers.
I agree. Like, you get Black teachers. You get Black teachers. Everybody gets Black teachers.
Everybody. Woo! I mean, it would be such a better world if we all had Black teachers. And again, you know, when I asked the Portland mamas if they had ever had a Black teacher, I mean, like, the people who had Black teachers were from the South. And then like the folks who had who were not from the South, like maybe one or two, but most it was a no. And there's tons of research out there on why having Black teachers benefits all children. But I mean, I think when you look at where we're at in this country right now, and the killings of Black men by law enforcement, there's still a problem with dehumanization. And if all of our children go through the freaking school system and they have Black teachers, at the very least, they have several touch points in their lives of a Black person defying the stereotypes that they may have of Black people, influencing their life in positive ways. And it's a little bit harder to kneel on someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds when you can see them as a human being. And that starts with making sure that there are diverse people in white children's lives. So that's two.
Need more male teachers, more Black male teachers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And foster that culture and environment. For me, at least for my youngest, I've so far been lucky enough to let my youngest have some male teachers. They're not Black, but they're male teachers. And it's been interesting to see the outlook it gave my child on education, and that it's not always a woman's job, that you know, that men can teach too, and that fathers can help with homework, and it's okay that they don't always just have to, you know, go to work and sit on the computer, or that role is no longer a gentified role in that sense where it's just women.
Right. And I mean, when we think about, you know, how our boys are learning to become men and their understanding of masculinity and what that looks like, having male teachers is a really important part of that. You know, having men in their lives, besides their, you know, fathers or grandfathers who are gentle and who are nurturing and who don't, you know, kind of fulfill the stereotype of like the toxic masculinity. I mean, that's important for boys and girls, but, you know, our sons need to see that in their lives. They need to have those kinds of role models, all of our sons.
Yeah, I agree. So you work your way up and hire a bunch of Black people.
I'm doing my best, girl.
Meanwhile, I'm just going to keep having these conversations online, and I'm going to keep complaining.
Stay at it.
I'm gonna keep hanging with my peeps, and you know, getting that train rolling and that. So you let me know when you're in position to hire some folks, and I'm gonna send you a bunch of Black people.
Okay, that sounds good.
And they'll all be educated, and no, they will. But I mean, that's a common misperception too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Black people aren't educated. Oh, there's just as many educated Black people as there are educated white people.
Yeah,
you just don't see it as often because, well, here we go to the systemic issue.
Yep, and the underemployment of Black people across education levels, which is, again, not a Black people problem, that's a white people problem, because you say get the education and we get the education, and then you won't hire us.
Well, let's talk about secondary education. So let's talk about college experience. I've had a crappy college experience in some forms of teachers taking liberties on even college students of color.
Yeah.
I remember one that really scarred me, and it was in, I believe it was my writing class. It was either writing or sociology, one of the two. But we were supposed to watch the movie Precious. I am very triggered by a lot of things due to my own traumas. And I made it very clear that I could not watch this movie. And we were supposed to come back. And once again, I mean, you grew up where I grew up, so there wasn't a lot of Black people in this class as it is. And so we were supposed to come back with do we feel that this is something that really happens in this Black community? And as I tried to voice privately, I came to this teacher and I'm like, I will fail this project because I can personally tell you that this is something that happens frequently in our community, the oppression, the abuse, the sexual abuse, all these topics that this movie touches. This is why the movie was made. You're still gonna have to watch it. And how do you know? And it's the liberties of putting me there as being less than. The superiority complex. You are a person in position of power at that moment. And at that moment, and I wasn't making eye contact. And she called me out on that too. Which is like, well, you don't know my background. You don't know where I come from and why I'm not making eye contact with you. Maybe I'm not making eye contact with you because in my experience, that's a threatening thing. Or maybe I'm just not ready to make eye contact because I don't feel safe making eye contact.
Right.
And as a college professor, those are types of things that even college teachers need to take into consideration when they're talking to adult students.
Absolutely.
We are adults, yes. But you don't know our backgrounds. And in college, we don't share our backgrounds and necessarily in that form.
Right.
But I also feel that as adults, we also need to step back outside of ourselves and reflect on how, especially when we are educators at a university, at a community college, at even a GED class. I don't care what you're teaching, but I feel that even adults take these liberties, and these are the liberties in the private, right? Yeah. I came to this teacher privately because clearly it was a sensitive subject to me. And clearly I needed to speak up and be like, dude, I'm going to fail this because let me verbally tell you right now that this is something that in my history and in my personal experiences within my own community, within who I am, where I come from, I know that these things are prevalent. Yeah. I can't watch this movie, and I haven't till this day. There are certain things I can't watch. I just can't. They trigger me. But as a educator to then put up that, well, clearly you're a failure. Like, that's how I viewed it at that moment. Because, A, you're calling me out on eye contact. That's a very personal thing to call somebody out on.
And it's cultural.
Yeah. I mean, Germans make eye contact. But, okay, I did not always make eye contact. But, yeah, it's also cultural. It's the comfort level. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like if there are any college people eventually watching this, I want also to kind of make it known that we were talking about, you know, elementary level, middle school level, high school level, but let's discuss college level. Like the experiences that our young college women and men are having. You know, one of my nephews, bright kid, bright, seen the worst of life. And it wears on a person. And how, as a loving aunt or a loving mother, a loving grandfather, father, how, you know, we have to pick the pieces back up and be like, hey, you know, I get it. That was really not cool. So why don't you just go back 10 times harder? It's not fair. It's not fair. And I don't think we're the only ones that experience it, but it's kind of one of those things that there's 10 more obstacles, and a lot of them are minuscule little ones, but they have such large impacts, and they shape how we view ourselves.
Go back, right?
It does. It does. So some of the things I'm finding that are offensive to people of color, me, is when those little things get dismissed. Yeah. Or you get called out on the little things. It's like, you're aggressive. Aggression can be a silent thing too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, some of the most aggressive people are silent. They do it in that very, it's a good technique, because all they're doing is waiting for you to snap so that they can then paint you as the aggressor.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, it's something that is targeted and weaponized against Black people and against Black women. You know, I mean, women in general, I think, you know, when you have the same characteristics that are seen as positives in men, you know, like as a woman, you're seen as a bitch, whereas a man is seen as confident, right? But then you add in the racial element, you know, and as a Black woman, you're seen as aggressive or threatening or hostile. There are all these words I could go on.
Right.
But it's the same thing. It's the same characteristics that are prized in white men.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Do you have? It's really unfair, man. Really unfair. You know, I just want to be right there next. It's the power struggle.
Yeah.
I mentioned it before too. It's the superiority complex. It's the fear of having your power taken.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, I don't want your power. I got my own. All I want to do is flex my power next to your power, and together maybe we can make this world better.
Right. Like make space. Right.
Yes.
It's not about giving up your seat at the table. It is about making space.
Yeah. Well, why don't you join my table? I'll make room.
Exactly.
I will clean off the oranges and maybe move a pizza box. And you come sit down at my table and we can discuss this like loving human beings.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice. I'm trying to create that. Unfortunately, it's a pandemic, so I just got to call people. I'll be like, come join me at my table through my computer. I'll even hand sanitize before I touch it. All jokes aside, it's going to be an interesting school year coming up, man.
There is.
But, through these tragedies, I am excited, sadly enough, that it has become a new platform, a global one.
Yeah.
I hope that it does not fade. My fear is it's, just like the word diversity. It's like a buzzword. It really bothers me now.
Right.
Like, now you just commercialized it.
Yeah.
Commercialized my word. Yeah. Now it's like bootylicious. You're going to put it in the dictionary and it's going to be a thing.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you see all of the companies and their ads. And at first it was like, wow. Reebok is taking a stand. Reebok actually did a really, really beautiful job taking a stand. But, then it's like, your email is like, oh, Pizza Hut against racial bias. And, like.
You're sending me emails about racial biases. And I'm like, you're lying. You lying. Because if I go in there right now asking for a loan, you're going to be like, and.
Right. So it's like, they're commodifying the movement. And, that's a real thing. Like it's great that you made a commercial or sent an email or whatever, but what are you going to do to back that up? Are we getting free pizza for life or what?
Right?
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't have to be that, but I'm just saying the words have to be followed by actions in every respect.
What was I going to say? As a mixed person, how do you feel of not only being in the middle, but now how do you feel like we could bridge the bridges better? Because I feel like what people are missing, and I know this isn't a political channel, folks, so just so y'all know, I'm talking from experience here. I feel like it is our turn to speak up. Just like you said, when our children are older, it's going to be a total different melting pot, a different environment. But how do you feel we can, as those in the middle, communicate better or bridge this in a way? I understand that your family seems to have blended well, and well, I mean, at least you seem more well-rounded. Like me, I was one half, and now I'm like with the other half, and I'm like, I missed out on y'all my whole life. Where have you been? I got cousins. That's amazing. On the other half, I only got 2. So I got more than 2 cousins. I didn't forget y'all on the other half. I was just making sure.
I think when you're mixed and you have family in your life on both sides, you can be that bridge. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I do think that for a lot of white people in my family, knowing me and, being part of my family and listening to me over the years, has given them an insight and a perspective that they might not have otherwise. And some of them have been open to that, and some of them haven't.
How do you deal with that? I had somebody ask, my friend Jasmine in the last video had a really good question, and it's, how does she stand up against the adversity that she is facing? Now, she's a white person, but she, is trying to stand there and be like, I see some things, and she's trying to voice herself.
Mm-hmm.
So she was asking, well, how do you stand up in the face of adversity when you're like at the point where you're like, do I delete people? What do I do? So as the person stuck in the middle, I told her you can't delete people, but you can always unfollow and you can take care of your own mental health. But how do you view it as a middle person? Like, do you have any advice?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't know if I have advice, but I did block a relative the other day. And that wasn't over like so much a matter of disagreement, because I'll debate the matter all day. We can talk about the issues and I will argue because I love to do that. But it was really like when the question was, I posted an article about if the Confederate monuments should come down, which I think they should. And I had a relative who disagreed with that. And then I didn't even really fight with her at all, actually. Other people, mostly white people, were weighing in on why it's a good thing to take those down. And then her response to me was, I guess you've forgotten that you have white blood in your veins. And then I didn't even block her then, but like when she like continued to push in this, like, I'm not racist because I loved your parents and I was the only one who accepted them when they got married. That was the right thing to do. You don't get a cookie for that. That's not your I'm not racist path.
I feel a little defensive of that comment.
Yeah, right.
Well, on a similar, I had a grandparent, not my favorite grandparent, but a grandparent, say, oh, well, when you were born, I told your mom that, I would be able to find you out of the nursery. I mean, and then I couldn't find you. You were yellow. And I asked your dad, well, why weren't you brown? I did block her. But she's not on social media, so I like literally just had to send a really emotional video, and some folks don't take emotion well, so haven't heard.
No, they don't. And so like for me, that's the difference. Like it's not, I'm not gonna block a relative because I disagree with their opinion, but I will block you for like making this personal. And it's a James Baldwin quote, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's something to the effect of, we can agree to civilly disagree or whatever until that disagreement dehumanizes me. And then that's not a matter of disagreement anymore. That's a see you later, you're blocked. And so that was, the case with a relative who I'm pretty close to and has been part of my life for my entire life. But I don't need that. I don't need it. I have a cousin who has said some really hurtful things. That person doesn't live nearby and I don't see them often. So maintaining that distance is easier. But I mean, at this point, like, I don't feel like having anyone in my life who devalues my experience as a human being has a place in my life. So, maybe people will learn how to apologize and how to educate themselves a little bit and come back after some growth. I could totally be open to that, but I'm not interested in hollow apologies or, just making up for making up's sake. Like, this is a pivotal moment in history, and I'm 39 years old. If you haven't in that time, like, learned to see me as a whole person and still feel like there's space to make your little racial comments, then you can go.
As a person, a mixed person, I feel that we are often the punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, and depending on the settings, people feel more comfortable saying things that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable saying to a person they see as fully Black.
For sure,
But
you hear all the.
I feel like the African American side sometimes also feels like they can take the frustration out on you in certain ways because you got the good hair considered, or you're lighter skinned, or but it's I find it that my Caucasian side has more resistance than my Black side did.
Yeah, I do too. And when I see it like from the other way, that's one of those that I just like it can make me feel a little bit defensive. But I really try to just be like, I mean, that's like colorism and this whole history that we have of, like the racial caste system and, like, right. Like I will let, darker skinned sisters like feel like, I mean, I won't let them, like, I can't stop them. But I I hold space for the validity of that anger, even if it's not necessarily like fair to direct it at me. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you. I
would rather that all day than like my white relatives like saying some racist stuff to me.
I agree. I feel like
I understand that. This I am at a loss.
I agree. I feel they deserve. Like, I was talking to a family member earlier today, and I was saying, if my darker halves feel the need that they want to let some aggression out and they want to let it out on me, do it. Ain't nothing you can say that's going to hurt me worse than what the world's done to you. So if you want to take it out on me because half of me is white, but you're not going to go and say it to a completely white person, have at it. I can handle it. I think that's what I was born for anyway. So let it out. I feel like we need more spaces, especially, I know we're so focused on Black males right now, and with all right, like, I got brothers, my father, I got cousins. I mean, I fear for their lives. I do. And it's valid that we fear for their lives right now. But at the same time, I hear these stories of the Black women in my family, and I'm like, you carry the whole world on your shoulder.
Yes.
The whole freaking world. Not only are you worried about all your sons, brothers, cousins, and nephews, but your own lives are constantly being questioned, and you work so hard, and yet it's amazing when I talk with, my aunts and some cousins, and I see their faces, and that life hasn't been easy for them, but you see nothing but love on their faces. They have this amazing composure that it's like, y'all just need to all have a barbecue. And it turns out I've been missing out, man. I've been missing out on these barbecues, and I just want to bring all my white people with me to these barbecues, and I just want the red cup, and I just want to sit there. I don't do chicken, but I will eat all your mac and cheese. I will bring some Würstchen and sauerkraut for whoever likes that. Not my cup of tea, but I'll make some pretzels.
Yes.
I feel like we need to get rid of these stereotypes, and we need some new ones. Like, there is no stereotype. Everybody is an individual. Cut it out. Ain't nobody got time for that. I need a meme. I got time for that.
Get it together.
Get it together. Check yourself. Real quick before we end this, in my last video, I had mentioned how there's different rules of engagement, and that white people are very reserved, and calm and quiet and, well, how they present it. And then my black calf is totally just bubbly, loud, like, I don't really care, we're living it up, and they have nicknames. Funny that you say, you know, we're not supposed to call people out their names. I won't re-say what I said in the last video. Everybody can go check that. But my first voicemail was one where somebody called me out of my name. I was really offended at first. But I'm realizing it's part of the culture, though. Everybody has a nickname. And the more I get into it, the more I realize the world isn't nice to them as it is. So how are you going to protect your kids when you can't protect them? You desensitize them to being disrespected in a way, but you do it in a loving way.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Well, I'm learning it because I felt disrespected, but I know that I was just being loved. And I love them too.
Well, and it's one thing when it is coming from your community and it's coming out of love, and it's another thing when it's a teacher who thinks your name is too hard to bother to say correctly.
Correct. But I just wanted to emphasize that I'm learning, though, for our Black culture, it is kind of desensitizing because you can't be too sensitive if somebody calls you something. But at the same time, it's never out of malice, and it's always out of love. And the people who have these nicknames, you can see that they are feeling loved, and they're like, oh yeah, that's just so and so, and yeah, boo boo, and this and that, right? And I don't know, but somehow I feel like if both cultures get a little bit of each other, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Don't fear the silence. Don't fear the loudness. The loudness isn't there to deter you unless you mean harm. And the silence, it just needs to be pepped up a little bit.
You know what it is that the focus is always, I mean, especially from white people, I feel like, it's always on not seeing the differences and just seeing the similarities. But all that does is like make you afraid of or at odds with the differences. Differences are good. See the differences, celebrate the differences. Don't hate people for the differences is like the thing, right? But just because something is different doesn't mean that it's bad. And when we do this, like, oh, I don't see how we're different, I just see how we're the same, like, that sounds really good. We're all different. We're all different.
You know, if I wasn't so lazy, I almost had half my hair straight and half curly to go with that meme that you had. But I know I'm in a pandemic. I ain't got nothing else to do, but I was being really hard.
That's right.
And then we could have the front braided just so that we got everything covered.
The whole experience told in hair.
What is one of your biggest pet peeves that you experience in your life being a person? Like, what is something that if you could tell anybody, it is disrespectful to me, don't do it to people. Oh, you are invading my space. Or
when white people ask you what you are, and then especially when they try to argue with you about it.
I love that.
So they're like, what are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? Even though I know what they mean. And then they're like, I mean, like, what's your nationality? And I'm like, well, I'm American. And they're like, no, I don't mean that. I mean, like, where are your parents from? And I'm like, they're from America. And then they're like, no, I mean, like, and I'm like, do you want to know, like, my ethnicity? And they're like, yeah. And then I'm like, I'm Black. And they're like, no, I mean, like, what are you really? Or what else are you? And I'm like, I'm sorry, like, that's not enough of an answer for you. Now, the difference is I do not mind it when Black and brown people ask me because they usually think that I'm from where they're from, right? Like, I get a lot of, like, Latinx folks asking me or speaking to me in Spanish. A lot of, like, Middle Eastern or folks from India will ask me. And that's totally different because they want to know if we have, like, this common bond. So that's different. But it's, like, the white people, like, trying to put me in their box and then arguing because I don't meet their stereotype of what they think.
Oh, my favorite is arguing that I'm half German.
That's ooh, do they do that?
All the time. And then they're like, say something. Oh, my favorite is when Germans question me because it's our culture. That's disrespectful to pry in somebody's life like that.
Oh, wow.
But when they come to the United States sometimes, because I worked at this RV rental place, last summer, it was the best thing ever. And a lot of their clientele were Eastern European. So, you know, it was fun because I got to speak my language all day and people said my name right. But then I also got those questions like, where do you know this language so well? And I'm like, well, when your family's German, then you got to know the language. And then it came with, oh, yes, sorry, dumb question. Because there is this unwritten rule that you don't disrespect people like that. Like, we don't have that in the United States.
No.
We don't have that whole, it is disrespectful to pry in people's business.
No, we sure don't.
Part of your business is your heritage, what language you could speak or could not speak.
Yep.
Where you come from, what you eat. I mean, all that. Even going to, if you have a broken arm, we are more likely to be up like what you do. How to break that arm.
Right.
Well, in my culture, you don't ask somebody that. It's none of your business how they broke their arm. And you're lucky you didn't get punched in the face for asking them how they broke their arm. But here, it's like...
no boundaries.
No boundaries. Tell you how I broke my arm. Waving it at people. My arm is not broken. I was just making it. But yeah, I think everybody should travel.
Yes,
travel. For
sure.
I think we should just screw this pandemic.
I mean, the RV travel, that could work.
Good. Like I said, I rented out RVs. Good on that. But I can empty your septic tank.
That's too big. That's a useful skill.
I know where to go. Hey, you come visit us. We can go. I know some camping places.
Yeah, they're in our RV, and then you can help us with that.
Yeah, and you may no longer park at our Walmart, okay? No longer 24-hour parking at Walmart. So you know, you better have your camping places in advance. And you may not empty your septic tank in the parking lot of the rental place. It is unacceptable, folks.
Oh my God.
And illegal. It is illegal to dump the septic tank anywhere but a dump station.
Why? Oh, do better, people.
Burning Man. Who got stories on people in Burning Man?
Oh Lord.
That's for a whole new conversation.
Yes, it is.
And I'll hit you up another time for those stories.
My dad likes to go to Burning Man, so we can talk about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, people left and were fine and came back, and well, I've seen some things.
Yikes.
Hey, I'm not judging. You had a time of your life. Now you spend the next week recovering.
Yeah, that's for real.
Anything else that you wanted to talk about or say, or something that's dear to your heart that you want to share in this?
I don't think so. We covered all the bases. We did the one drop law. We talked about...
I know. Okay, anybody, we need to change that law. We need to change the law. And in my opinion, we need to get rid of all boxes. Other countries don't have boxes for education. Why do we have boxes for education? We need to get rid of the boxes. Can we just say kids? How many kids you got going to the school? Too many. Good. Well, we'll find room.
Oh, man.
One is too many. I know, but guess what? You still got one left.
Oh, God, I can't wait for these kids to go back to school.
I know. I can't wait to go back to school. I miss my people.
Yes.
I do. I miss my students, and I miss, walking with my children to school. Yeah. And I don't miss the lunches, but I miss my lunch people. I even miss the admins because, we were getting somewhere. We were making true progress, and I felt like this pandemic has killed my progress. And although now, the progress is on a macro scale, so.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go back to school. Never thought I would say that. Well, it's because I don't have to actually. Although, for a while there, I was going back to high school. That was fun. Turns out math is taught a lot differently nowadays than it was back then.
Oh man, I couldn't do math then. I probably could still not do it now.
Oh no, I didn't say I could do it. I said it was taught differently. And let me tell you, my favorite class in my town at the high school is the cooking, okay? Those ladies are killer. And I learned how to dice up my vegetables and that I was using all my knives wrong. And they should not go in the dishwasher. Why do we have a dishwasher if not everything can go in it?
Good question.
These hands were not meant for dishwashing. I'm sorry.
No, nope.
Too spoiled for that. I'll own it. Yeah, I'm privileged. These hands don't wash dishes, folks.
No, that is what the dishwasher is for.
Exactly.
Best invention.
Well, thank you for talking with me today, Rashelle.
Yeah,
and everybody, comment, like, share. Definitely comment for once, because I know people got stuff to say. Don't be afraid. We'd love to join in the conversation. Like, let me know what else people want to talk about. And before I do end this, though, do you have any recommendation on books or websites that I can add in the links that might be on these topics, or stuff that you have read and really like to share?
Yeah, anything by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The one I think people are most familiar with is Between the World and Me, but he has a new, not super new at this point, but a fiction novel out that was set during time of slavery. Anything by James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time.
Oh yeah, I love James Baldwin.
Like a great, I think, not intro, but just, I mean, if it is your intro into reading about race, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Those are some of my favorites, but I need to start finding some new stuff to read. I'm reading a biography of Malcolm X right now, though.
Somebody dear to my heart, because she's Dutch and Black and she grew up in Oregon. The Girl Who Fell from the Sky author. God, why can I remember her name right now? But the book is The Girl Who Fell from the Sky.
Okay.
And
okay, I'm gonna.
It's a wonderful story. I met the author. She's gorgeous, and I will remember her name, and I will put it in the links in the bottom. But that's an awesome book. And I've also recently read Can't Kill Us All.
Ooh, how was that?
It makes you understand the rioting, because it's about the riots and what led up to them in Missouri. So it's an interesting take on the journalist who went out there to cover the riots and to cover the, policing and stuff, and his take. And I will put the link in the bottom because I did the audio version. I have the physical book, but I did the audio version, which YouTube has. So if you're not a big reader, or you're a parent and you're just trying to, pretend like you got other things to do, you can listen to the audio version.
Yes.
So YouTube's good for that too, I've realized.
That's the only way I can read anything these days.
I'm telling you, and it's easy to share that way too.
Yes.
So
all right, I'm gonna check that one out.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. My buddy Rashelle, thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.